0. Well, welcome aboard, everybody. Happy Sunday night. It is time once again for Sunday Live, starring Scott Sandlin, and tonight, guest starring Jason Lynette, and of course, Richard and the Giraffe. It's great to have everybody. If you wonder why I look a little bit haggard today, the reason why is simple. I got a Fitbit last week, which means that no matter what I'm doing, I have to stop and go for a walk around the block just about every hour so I can get to 10,000 steps a day. So it's really good to have everybody here tonight. And as usual, every Sunday night we get together, a chance for you to experience hypnosis, a chance for you to learn about hypnosis, and sometimes to hear some incredible guests. And tonight we have Jason Lynette as our incredible guest. As usual, there's a chat box down below. Feel free to chat in the chat box. And as is our normal routine, I'm going to type in the chat box while Scott says something profound. So welcome aboard, Scott.
Hello, Richard, and hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope your fantasy football teams have been going well. I appreciate those of you who, like myself, are missing Sunday night football, and to those of you who are watching the Packers play right now, thanks for watching the recording. I know a lot, there's going to be a percentage of you that watch the recordings more often for the next 12 weeks. And I appreciate you guys, whether you're watching this live or recorded. I had a very simple weekend. I've had a very simple week. Very exciting stuff with the clinic, and I've been pushing a lot of my stuff has been with the Newport Clinic with Richard Clark and I. And we've been doing a lot with drug rehab centers. Someone in the chat room last week or 2 weeks ago wanted to talk about drug rehab centers, and we've had some really fun developments that I'm excited to share when that's the topic for tonight. But that is not the topic for tonight because, like Richard said, Jason is our guest tonight. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Broadcasting here from my lovely basement here in Burke, Virginia. And I'm going to ask you, Richard, how many steps so far?
So far, it is 8 o'clock in the Central Time Zone, and I'm at 7,480 steps, which means based on my usual pattern and another walk around the block, I will probably hit 12,000 today.
Because this will give you a cue of my motivation. I forgot I'm running a half marathon in 2 weeks, so I got my 15,000 in the day, and ow. And then I stood for 10 hours and taught a class. So,
Well, you did 15 before teaching a class?
I was probably at about 12,000 before the class. I sat a lot, we'll put it that way.
That's fair.
Yeah. But it's a great class that's going on. We had a big class here last weekend as well, and just balancing the schedule of classes and training and seeing clients and the joy of not having every day be the exact same.
Well, Jason, I know who you are, and Scott knows who you are, and the people who are at HypnoThoughts Live knows who you are. But for those who are in this chat room who may not have had the pleasure of meeting you before, although I'd be surprised if they haven't seen any of your advertisements, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah. Again, I'm Jason Lynette. I'm here in Virginia. My business is Virginia Hypnosis because I'm in Virginia and I do hypnosis. And like most of us, I did not grow up wanting to be a hypnotist. It was something that a stage hypnotist came to my college and I went, oh, that's cool, and decided to look into that. Jump forward a few years, I left behind another career and then was full-time in stage hypnosis for a couple of years. Honestly, I was the one in the back of my hypnotherapy training as the smart Alex stage hypnotist going, I'm not going to do this therapy crap. Why am I here? And then it became all that I do. So launching the components of seeing clients, I'll phrase it this way, before I had children, seeing upwards of 35 to 45 clients a week, then tuning that down drastically as family began to grow. And in recent years, becoming known as one of the people who helped make other hypnotists more successful. So taking the strategies, taking the way we talk about our business, and even folding in the change work process too, that by putting everything together, we end up with a process where we're able to help our clients better, survive in a business that's much more successful, and really just help ourselves to grow in what we do.
So let me jump into that because that really goes right into my first question. I was going to say you probably don't need an introduction to anybody who's watching this because you're very active online, and I think the people watching this tend to be the people who are aware of that. And you mentioned that you started off focusing on private practice, and you were doing 30, 35, 40 clients a week, and you've made this transition. And you and I have talked about it, and you and Richard have talked about it, privately and separately. But what would you say is what's your week look like? I mean, how many clients are you seeing? What's going on at your center? All that sort of stuff. Let's just talk about your logistical life.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example of the last 2 weeks, because the last 2 weeks tend to be very typical for me. My schedule, the biggest change that I made in recent years that actually I would share by making this one specific shift, it actually made my productivity much higher, which was that first of all, I began to focus on these are the specific hours where I see clients. I'm in the office Tuesday through Friday. The first appointment is a 10. The last appointment is a 4. I schedule my sessions are anywhere between like an hour to maybe hour 15, hour and a half. And these days I only schedule 4 appointments a day, so the 10, 12, 2, and 4. Not that it takes that much time in between sessions for prep or anything such as that, but because there's other things that I'm doing in addition to seeing clients. So whether it's promoting trainings that I'm doing, I'm a trainer of Sheila Granger's Virtual Gastric Band. That was the big event last weekend, which happened live at the office and then live streaming online to about 3 or 4 dozen people extra. This weekend it's an NLP class that's going on. So I structure my time. I go back to the line from Michael Gerber, focusing on the concept of working on your business, not just in your business. So I specifically structure my time in such a way that, I'd phrase it this way, back in the days of seeing 35 clients in a week, that would be that time where I'd have that packed schedule, but then suddenly the schedule would be dry because the calls were not being returned, the interactions were not actually happening. So there'd be sort of burst and dry spells inside of it. So these days, client time is Tuesday through Friday. Classes are typically weekends, and the constant joke around my friends is that, well, I'm self-employed. I'll tell you when the weekend is. So this week, the weekend is Monday and Tuesday for me.
Sure. By the way, one of the things you just said that I think is really a key to success is I want clients who want to be hypnotized. I don't see clients who don't want what I offer. And I only want clients who will pay my full fee. And I only want clients who will see me when I'm available. So many people know that for many years I was a single dad and I was raising my kids who were in my house who I had custody of. And so I would only see clients from 10 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. That way I could always take them to school, do my administrative stuff, and then pick them up from school. I would make exceptions, and sometimes I would see some clients in the evenings or on a Saturday, just because it actually did work out for me 1 or 2 days a week, 1 or 2 Saturdays a month. But that was really a personal option for me. And I think that one of the keys to success is being willing to set limits. And it seems counterintuitive, but I think it's also one of those things that really leads to a better type of client and doesn't create any limits.
I'd also mention that even I would admit it's shockingly rare to me that I have the interaction. This may only happen once a month nowadays. I go through my process on the phone with them, and before I even get to the pricing and the scheduling, I'm in the office Tuesdays through Friday. The first is the 10, the last is a 4. What time of day works best for you? And I'm giving a specific filter. I'm giving a list inside of it, then actually asking what works best for you. And again, it's only about once a month that the interaction would be, well, I only can do like a Sunday at 7 o'clock, to which I just politely repeat myself. Well, I'm in the office Tuesday through Friday. The first is a 10, the last is a 4. And maybe the interaction then goes, but I only can do Sunday at 7, which at that point, I am not willing to break those hours. That's time where I'm here with my family. And in that moment, though, it becomes that I don't intend for this, and we're going to get into some sales speak here, I don't intend for this to be what we refer to as a takeaway sale. Well, if you don't want the car, we don't have to have it. We don't have to haggle, which is what the car salesman might do. Right. I don't intend for it to become that moment, but it's a moment where I may sometimes just simply say, well, it sounds like we might not be a match. I can refer you to someone in the area who works evenings and weekends. And a few days later, the phone rings again, and here they are. What's the next 4 o'clock you have available? Right. And again, by setting that specific schedule for myself, that's where my productivity really jumped up.
So I have a similar situation where I was seeing a lot of clients and working in my business, and I came from a scarcity model. You know, I started off with debt and no clients, and wanting the phone to ring and all that stuff, and building up to being, you know, about like, you know, something probably a lot like your clinic was, and or practice was, and I was seeing clients anytime I could get them. You know, Saturday at 4 p.m., you bet I'll be there. Sunday morning the next day, I'd take any client anytime. And the way I like to describe what that felt like was a garden without a fence. You know, a garden is a nice thing, and a garden is a pretty thing, and then a garden without a fence just keeps growing and just kind of plants and weeds and whatever just spread. But the best gardens are gardens with boundaries and borders and structure and all that stuff. And those are the garden, you know, those classic English gardens and those sorts of things. And I think shifting my practice from just let's get as many things growing as possible to let's make this as beautiful and intentional and thoughtful as possible really was a big step change in the way I thought about my practice. So for the people who are watching this tonight or later in the recordings, who are getting past that threshold of seeing enough clients to pay their rent, and they've got, you know, their basic logistics covered, and they're looking to kind of do that good to great step. How quickly did that set of boundaries become a good financial? I understand quality of life, but how quickly did that become a good business move?
Well, to back up slightly, there are some motivators inside of that, and there were conversations before our kids were born about my wife and I just basically going, okay, great, so let me burn out now. That way, well, I can't. It's a good time to do it. That it was. Why are you both laughing at that a little too quickly?
Because
we both had that conversation.
Yeah, like, well, this is the time for me to do it. I've had students in my office going, a lot of your recent trainings are all around the same time frame. I go, well, I had set a 5-year plan about these are some of the trainings I'm interested in. And then my wife and I made plans for having kids, and it became, so I'm going to do that all this year, and did 5 years of training in the course of 1 year, and wasn't home a lot that year. Now I'm home a lot, and intentionally. So for that person getting started and setting those boundaries, I'd reference by way of a friend of mine. She's a massage therapist locally that we're in the D.C. area, basically. At my office is in Alexandria, right up 395. You're in D.C. And the line I keep using this week about dealing with anything in this area is the term Pope traffic. That term just makes me very, very happy. So the example is she's a massage therapist that is actually working in multiple locations. And towards the end of the week, she realized as she was working just how much time she was wasting in her commute. That here were the days she was in D.C., here were the days that she was working in Vienna, Virginia, which is out around Tyson's area, if you know that at all. Here are the days that she was closer to Arlington. 3 different locations, but here was all this time being wasted inside of the driving. I would actually go even deeper into this reference to mention that when you start to look at productivity, something that I've been doing recently, we talk about batching our tasks. And I forget where I first heard this, but the concept of batching your day by mode. So my morning time frame is when I'm physically the most active. I'm up before the family, I'm hitting the gym, I'm doing things around the house. Then they're up, you got your Fitbit there, I got my Apple Watch, where I'm doing something active in that mode. The phrase is often win the morning, win the day. So that's the mode that starts my day. Now here's the time where I'm at my office, and there's a mode that's in there of, I'd phrase it just this way, of communication, which that can involve dealing with clients, that can involve speaking on the phone. And it's a battle sometimes to not be checking your phone, your devices, and refreshing your email 10,000 times in one day.
Right.
But to schedule specific batch times where here the mode is I'm sitting at the computer and I'm typing. So these are things that often those of us that have been in this stuff for a while would start to add in as a, I hate to use the phrase, but a last-ditch effort to not go insane inside of our businesses.
Sure.
Yet for that person who is starting brand new at this, to begin to fold in some of these concepts, to fold in some of the better strategies for getting things done.
And what you're talking about is proactive instead of being reactive, right?
Absolutely.
All right, now, it's my job to keep the trains running on time, so there's so much to talk to Jason about. There are a couple good questions in the chat box, and so we're going to get to those. The other thing we're going to get to is we always have our guest guide us through a hypnotic process. So I don't know if we told you that, Jason, but you get to hypnotize everybody here in a little while.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm practicing.
Right. I want to mention a couple things, though, that every Sunday night we get together, a chance to experience hypnosis, a chance to learn about hypnosis, and to share some things that are going on. So, for example, I got a Fitbit. I have a new microphone. It's called a Rode microphone, and this is, you notice the increased sound quality. I'm going to use this for my hypnosis recordings, so I'll post about that in our Facebook group or maybe on the all-new Hypno Thoughts. So there's so much going on, but I want to ask you a clinical question, Jason, because you and I are pretty good friends, but you do the element induction, I don't. You do virtual gastric band, I don't. You do regression, I don't. So why are we friends, and how can we both help clients?
Wait, what was the question?
we do a lot of things that are opposite almost, and yet the question is, we're both highly effective with clients. What is your predominant approach, and why is it that you feel that that's beneficial to clients? In other words, what does a session with Jason look like?
Yeah, I would fold it this way, and these are phrases that I've been coming back to more frequently inside of my process, and I'm still kind of perhaps in process is the best way to phrase this. So understand I may be using some phrases here that I love. A fascination of mine is negative language used positively. That's something that I just enjoy. So there's a couple of premises in my mind as I'm sitting down with a client. And phase one is very often we've got to break the pattern of whatever is going on so far. We've got to interrupt whatever patterns are there. And I see hypnosis as a conversation inside of our process to begin to get that foot in the door. So now we're getting into Elmanian language of that bypassing of that critical factor of the mind, getting that foot in the door where in some part of our process I want to help get you to a place where you on your own can begin to realize that your old model of the world doesn't work as well as it used to. That model of the world where things were stuck, where things were a challenge, is no longer as concrete and as solid as it is. And I have a cynical statement often in the back of my mind as I begin the process, yet I want you to hear this from a very caring place because there's a follow-up to it, which in my mind, it begins with the phrase, I really don't care about the issue that's bringing you in because what I do care about is the solution we're going to help transition you into. So it's that phrase of you go first. I want to go to where they want to be and bring them along for the ride. So I had suggested just the theme for tonight of leveraging success, and my goal is not to fix their problem. My goal is to transition them into that better variation of who they are, where that old model of the world is no longer congruent. And by doing that, and that came about because I heard so many conversations at trainings, at workshops, at conventions about, well, what if they backslide? What if things fall backwards? What if it wears off, which is a whole other conversation. And I want to help to build a process where that old model of the world is now so completely incongruent, and the new automatic response is there. So folding in things of more of a hypnotic phenomenon nature. So whether it's like a Dave Ellman process, I make use of testing convincers quite a bit. You've all featured the Hypnotize with Conviction in the Hypno Store. Things such as that. It's why, with, for example, virtual gastric band may be a strategy I often would use with a weight loss client because it's stepping into an alternate reality and pulling a few elements out and then moving from there. And even if it's in the regression, can they physically go back and change the past? Well, of course not. Yet we're taking that stuck experience as they perceive it, note the word perceive, and then beginning to turn it into that Play-Doh and morph it into something else. So it all tends to begin with me, again, with that phrasing of, I need to dissociate from that problem state as fast as possible, and it's all about that leveraging forward. The example that always comes to mind, and this is one that rings true with me in terms of how it began to structure how I work with clients. This woman's in my office. and she's there to quit smoking, and it's a few weeks later, and she has this experience. She's at a dog park, and there's this guy there who goes, what's different about you? You used to bother me. And that's his hello. Side note, now they're married. She goes, I quit smoking, and I loved his response, as if I had actually paid this guy to be there. Oh, congrats, you said you quit smoking. If you said you were quitting smoking, you'd probably be back here smoking again next week. Congrats.
Yeah.
Now, through this interaction, that was the small talk, that was the horribly awkward flirting, transition into they began to date. He's a runner. She then came back to me. She wanted to get into some motivation for exercise. The two of them now have been running these long events, endurance events, and here's where she started. Here's where she is now with all these lifestyle changes around it. Hand her a cigarette. It doesn't work in that environment that she's now created for herself. So the change process is all about that arc. So the question is, we do different methods. How are we still friends? We all have different ways of telling similar stories. We all have different ways of getting from point A to point B. It doesn't matter if Goldilocks tries out the chairs first, the bed first, or the porridge. Either way, she's going to go on the same journey, and that's a horrible metaphor because it doesn't end up well for Goldilocks, yet you get my idea here.
Sure. Now, there's a bunch of questions in the chat room. So what I'm going to do, Jason, is we're going to play speed answers, okay? So I'm going to time you, okay? I'm going to ask the question. So you're going to have to come up with your very best response in the very first shot because there's lots of great questions in here. So Antonio says,
Hey, Antonio.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of leveraging success, what is one avenue you use to keep in touch with potential clients?
I am a firm believer in email marketing. Email marketing, everyone has an email address, and if they don't, the people who are more than likely to buy and purchase your goods and services have email addresses. The benefit of email is, and this is going to be interesting to some people, people have the ability to opt into a list, and they also have the ability to opt out when they are no longer interested. Opt-outs are a gift. Opting out is someone expressing the interest to you that they're no longer interested. And thank you very much, I wish you the best. And I maintain my focus on those people inside of that list. And the key here is provide value. The formula is always provide outstanding value before you ever go for a purchase. It's all about building that relationship. And by building that relationship, we're building trust, we're building a connection, and only then, hey, I've got some resources that can help you even further.
All right, 46 seconds. Kelly, that's a great question. 1, 3, or 6 sessions. I've heard there are reasons for one or the other, but I really don't know until we get there. And what about a flat fee for up to X number of sessions? How do you do your pricing? 45 seconds.
Okay. Here is my exact phrasing. We start with a plan of 3 sessions, and if that's all we need, fantastic. However, if there is value in adding additional sessions, of course that's an option. My goal is always to give you the most effective process and the most efficient use of your time.
By the way,
I did not promise you it was done in 3 sessions. I did not also say we'd be done in 6. Instead, it becomes a process where the client is driving the interaction. A quick strategy here. Hey, Richard, this time Sunday at 9 o'clock, is that usually good for you?
Yep.
Play along.
Yes.
Yes, great. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and schedule Sunday in 2 weeks at 9 o'clock as well. And as you get to that point, and if things are going great, fantastic, we've got the time scheduled. My time tends to fill up. And if you get to that point and you see you don't need me at all, things are going fantastic, I'd love to hear that even more. Cancel the appointment. Just give me 48 hours notice. As a side note, that's a strategy I've consistently used to add more sessions when it's effective and ethical to do so, and it is shockingly rare to have someone cancel that appointment.
That is great phrasing, and people need to pay attention to the way you did that. I do something similar. I like my phrasing. Your phrasing that you just used, there are some things in there that are definitely better than mine that I'm going to take. So people need to pay attention to what you just said.
And I tell you what, there's a thing we'll mention a little bit later, and I'll type that out so people can have that.
And by the way, the great news is that these are all recorded. So it's at the 24-minute mark that Jason said something profound. In other words, he dropped a knowledge bomb. All right, next question, okay? So Lisa says she charges more than others. By the way, that's a good idea. I do not compete on price. In fact, I could care less what other people charge. But she says, I charge more than others here, but what I offer is more holistic. It's not the same as others, so I need to find a way to explain that to demonstrate value. Now, we would call that, of course, a unique selling proposition, and that's the term you should Google. But Jason, what do you say to that profound question?
Yeah, there's a great example, a class last weekend where someone was asking about what about people in her area charging lower than she does. That her rate, if I remember, was like $250 per session. Someone else in the area was $125. And her question is, what can I do to help raise their rates higher? To which my response was, nothing whatsoever. Focus on being the best you can possibly be. And I like USP, unique selling proposition. I think calling it your secret sauce is a whole lot more fun. What are those reasons? Consider this. You'd hear this often from other people who would talk about business inside of hypnosis. And I think this is a cynical statement. Why do most people call and say how many sessions and how much is it? And some would label that as, oh, they're price shopping, they're not motivated, they're looking for a magic wand, to which I'd just be brutally honest. They've never hired this service before, and they don't know what questions they should be asking.
And in that moment, if you can answer the questions that they don't even know to ask,
yes,
you get them.
They
don't know the questions.
Satisfy objections before they arise.
And if you say, look, I've had this conversation a lot of times, you've never had it before, let me just go ahead and answer the questions you don't know to ask yet, and after I've done that, that might help you come up with some new questions of your own. It'll make this conversation go a lot faster. And then you say stuff they didn't even know they needed to ask, and they feel really satisfied by you. So,
see, I learned something tonight. I'm actually writing that down. I went to go get a pen.
Nice. Yeah, my phrasing is everything starts with you, so let me ask you a few questions about what your goals are. And from that, that's how we define that. So play the game of, remember that in the sales process, you are the one setting the criteria. So what are those things that are unique about you that are every reason why they should be seeing you? And I often play a game of this in some of my classes of certification for new students, where my goal is to convince them they are more qualified to see a client than I am. What is it that their background is? Use what your history is as a part of why they should come to you.
Right.
Here's the one in a recent class that was a teacher, and we begin to fold that in as a qualifier as to why, well, it turns out you really do want a hypnotist that was a professional educator. Here's the one in the room that was a nurse. That's an easy connection. Here's the one, though, that was actually a law enforcement agent, and he's used to directing people in certain ways to help get results quickly in a moment of crisis. Now, luckily, we're not quite in a moment of crisis here. However, through the way of hypnotic suggestion, helping you to create the changes that you want. So the game is, what's the way that I look at anything metaphorical in hypnosis is that you've got that dart, and that bullseye is that filter that it's got to go through to end up on this result. Now, in this case, the result is this person with this more holistic process. As a side note, I would make sure that you are the product, and the outcomes are the product, more so than giving your clients a menu. I had a person I did some consulting with that was giving people a list of 5 different styles of energy healing, several different styles of hypnosis, and basically giving that to someone who didn't know what they were reading. When you are the expert and you are that holistic practitioner, and you are the one who can make use of the appropriate techniques at the right time to help them reach their goals.
All right, now we've spent the last 30 minutes talking, and we have not asked anybody to opt into anything. We haven't sold anything. We've just been dropping knowledge bombs, and that's what we do every week is we get together to share hypnosis. But there's the Hypno Store, and up at the top is a button that says New Products. And Jason, you have the Hypnosis Boot Camp in the Hypno Store. What the heck is a Hypnosis Boot Camp, and why should people click that tab on top and buy it?
Yeah. Hypnosis Business Bootcamp. I started my business doing everything wrong, getting massively into debt, wasting money on stuff that did not work. So if I had had a model to follow from the start, I would have been much better off. So the goal became, let me begin to use our terminology so far tonight, formulate several knowledge bombs of the things that I was doing that was actually working, and begin to basically, rather than play the game of, we've perhaps been to workshops before where people were just teaching like the surface structure of what was going on, as opposed to with what I decided to do, let me show you the stuff I actually do, and even the things I'm actually doing right now. And it's all done from a place of just the phrase of the more we're all successful, the more we're all successful. Let's raise everything up. So everything from things you can do that don't require a computer. Yes, in 2015, you can run a six-figure business without a website. It is possible. You can run a six-figure business without Facebook, without social media, without some of the crazy stuff that I'm doing these days. So it's everything from finding an office space to some of the hottest technologies inside of social media advertising you can do. I've got a campaign running right now that I think is still converting at about 3,500%. And how do you do that? How do you market to people in a way that just no one's talking about these days? So it's that full range. Yeah.
There's a quote that's on some of your marketing material, and it says this. It says, "Jason is my go-to guy for business in 2015 by Richard Nongard." So is that a legitimate quote or not? Did I really say that, Jason?
Yes, you did, and it was Dr. Richard Nongard.
Yes, I did. I actually typed it. I typed that to you. And the reason why is simple. You know, I believe in mentors, and I believe in finding people who are doing things that work. And, you know, people often look at me as a successful model in the hypnotherapy practice. I've done it for more than 25 years. But I always, you know, when I saw Jason doing some innovative things from a business perspective, hey, I want to learn some of these things, and I gotta tell you, they've been highly effective for me. So thank you for your help. And that's the thing that's important here. The reason why I gave you that endorsement was real simple. You believe in everybody raising up together in this profession, as opposed to that mode of competition, which is really the heart of the whole new HypnoThoughts, isn't it, Scott?
I hope so. You know, HypnoThoughts, I think what we've got going on with the new site is going to be set up so that we have more opportunities to educate each other about stuff going on. We have the announcement section, we have classes, the classes button, a few things like that that are going to be designed to show people easy ways to get their practices off the ground. You know, just using one fun example of how we can make this easier, actually, as a personal thing. There was a student who graduated from HPTI who Richard Nongard recommended go to HPTI. He went to HPTI, he graduated, and in that course, or in that program, I have a course on practice building. He took my practice building course, and things were going well for him. He asked me, what do you think? Should I take Jason Linnett's course? Richard Nongard said it's a good idea. We said, take the boot camp. I said to him, I've heard great things about it. He took it, and he said, that took me from good to great. The things you gave me in the HPTI class were really fundamental stuff for how to have a sound business, and Jason gave me stuff to make my practice really successful. And the reason I bring that up is because no one person has all the information that any one other person needs, and everybody we talk to knows something we don't. And so the more that HypnoThoughts or anything, SundayLive, can be a resource for making those conversations easier and more public, and to spread that information so it's not just a one-to-one relationship, but it can be a one-to-many, the more we all succeed, the more we all succeed.
Great. All right, now, Jason, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about some other things, but we always we always have our guest guide us through an awesome process of hypnosis. So before we go any further, and I'll let you summarize some things that you want to discuss, does this seem like a good idea at this time to go ahead and do that?
Yeah, I'll mention one other quick thing here, just a resource I wanted to make available. There's a phrasing that I tend to love, and we'll fold this into what we'll actually do tonight. And I love to look at in terms of building what we do, whether it's success within our clients or even success within our business. Consider the mindset of building assets. So, for example, we had a moment earlier where there was a moment where I phrased something and you comment on, here's the exact timestamp where that was. And now this video becomes an asset that people can begin to access. As we work with a client and they're successful, and then even better to get that feedback from them and begin to use that feedback inside of our materials. I'm a firm believer that the testimonial is not just for us. The testimonial is also an opportunity for the client to lock in their results for themselves and phrase it in their words and associate and dissociate and run that pattern in their mind over and over as to how successful they were as they're writing about it. So as we do anything inside of this, I keep referencing at times the moment I was the front page of the Alexandria Times in 2011. And how many phone calls did that article generate? One. Yet how much value has that article had that it's one of the first things you see when you land on the Virginia Hypnosis website? Massive. Here's a column I wrote for a local other paper that as it was printing, dozens of people were reading this. And again, didn't have much value there, but it has massive value as it's now an asset of mine. So look at it in terms of back to that secret sauce. What are ways that we can begin to get those assets and build up this stock of things that we have that really help to leverage ourselves into that better success? So I quickly share, here's a strategy that I actually use to get feedback from nearly every single client that I meet with. And we'll go through the role play as to how it will normally go. Hey, Richard, do you have 5 minutes before you head out?
Sure.
Okay, great. Because we do a quick exit survey at the end of the last scheduled appointment. You probably saw these out in the lobby. If you could fill this out before you leave and just leave it out there as well. And by the way, just write your first name. That way I can use it on the website. Sound good?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks.
And instead of giving them a blank sheet of paper, instead of telling them to go to Yelp or Google or somewhere like that and crossing the fingers and hoping they follow through, I have done several things there. I'm building some connections. I'm building some compliance steps as I begin the process with, do you have 5 minutes before you head out today? Yes. So now I've got the buy-in that you do have time. Notice that I was not asking for feedback. I wasn't asking for a testimonial. I instead reframed it as something else because we do a quick exit survey at the end of the last scheduled appointment as we have it. Fill this out here. And there's a slightly sneaky moment of, and go ahead and just write your first name. That way I can use it on the website.
Sure.
And inside of that, just putting together a simple survey to have someone complete that, which, what do you do with that? You could bound them up, stick them in a binder in your lobby, have that as your reading material out there rather than reading about what Miley Cyrus is up to this week. You could have those on your website. Those are the testimonials you can then pull out and plant in different areas. And I wanted to make the actual survey form that I use available to everybody here tonight. So if you just go over to worksmarthypnosis.com/survey, there's a little button there. You can click that and get that survey form that I use over there. Which again, getting
I'm
those.
Type that in the box here. www.work.
Yeah, the podcast that I do. We haven't mentioned that yet. Worksmarthypnosis.com, featuring guests like Richard Nongard and Scott Sandlin. Worksmarthypnosis.com/survey.
There you go. I put it in the chat box there. By the way, let me. Somebody said they were really irritated by my pop-up that keeps going crazy on here, and I have to admit that I put that pop-up when Jason first told me about lead pages, and now I'm desperately trying to find in my lead pages account that damn pop-up pops so I can get rid of it for you guys. But I can't seem to find it while I'm doing the show, so rest assured it will be gone by next week. So
I didn't know how to use the pop-up like that.
Let me tell you that when you make a request, we listen, and it's great to have everybody here. So,
Time for hypnosis.
Yeah, time for hypnosis. Hypnotize us, Jason.
There you go. Give me a time frame just so I know our schedule tonight.
You have
6 minutes.
What did you say, Scott?
6.
6.
I said 8. You have 8 minutes.
Fair enough.
7 it is. Awesome.
7 is fair.
All right. Well, assuming you're in a comfortable place and in a location where you can give it your full attention, notice we phrase that as a positive rather than telling you where not to listen to it. Go ahead and just take a nice deep breath in. Allow those lungs to fill on up for a moment. And as you exhale, if it's at a good, safe place for you, just simply let those eyelids close on down. And what's interesting about this process is that right now, this is a time for you. It's a time for you to relax. It's a time for you to let go. And it's a time for you to begin to explore some of the possibilities in your own mind and your own future as well. And the way we begin this process is a little different than what some people would often expect, because I could tell you to go ahead and relax your entire body, but that's not necessary. For right now, just simply relax your eyelids. Just your eyelids, some of the smallest muscles in your body, even some of the smallest muscles in your face. Just relax those tiny muscles all the way down to that point where you know you can make them just not work, as if they're powered off like a TV or just shut down like a computer. And as you know that you have made them that good and relaxed, just go ahead and test them and satisfy yourself that you can make them not work. Give them a try. They just relax even further. Give them a try. They just relax even further down. And just quit testing. And take that quality of relaxation you've now created and just send that all the way down across your body. Just like a nice wave of comfort, every natural breath following the one before. In fact, in this brief moment, as simple as I can count from 5 to 1, you can let these thoughts, suggestions, and experiences just help to guide you even further into your unconscious mind. Is 5. Taking this moment right now and appreciating how every natural breath follows the one before. It's interesting that you never really have to remind yourself to breathe. Your body just knows what to do. And it's kind of like how this time together tonight works. I know how to put the right words in the right order. And your mind and body naturally know how to make use of them. The number 4, deeper, relaxed, and appreciating the fact that this is a time together that never involves a loss of awareness. We're actually creating a heightening of awareness. Perhaps like right now, for no other reason except that I reference it. You can become aware of your feet. For no other reason except that I mention it, noticing your hands. Some people would say that the definition of a trance is just that moment where internal focus carries more meaning than external focus. So I don't know if your left hand is more comfortable than your right, or if your right is more comfortable than your left, or if they're about the same, and it really doesn't matter. And the number 3, as we share this brief moment of silence, become aware of the sensation of time passing. And letting that sensation, letting that feeling, letting that awareness become a reminder that this moment right now is brand new. This moment right now has never existed before. And this moment right now will never exist again. In fact, already in this process, just a few moments in, you are now an entirely different person than who you've ever been before in your life. And I say that in the simplest way possible. At one point in life, you were a baby. You had to learn how to crawl. You had to learn how to get up and walk. And today you're able to get around just fine, perhaps. At one point in life, you were fully dependent upon someone else to feed you, to bathe you, to care for you. And today, you can do these things all for yourself. Even down to the cellular structure of your body, you are constantly in a state of change. Cells multiplying and dividing and replacing the ones that die off at a pace so rapidly you need not be concerned. As the investment world would say, past performance need not indicate future results. Just because something was one way before is no reason it has to be that way now. So the number 2, deeper, relax, perhaps considering things in your life you've been trying to change. Goals in your professional, even personal life you've been trying to fix. And perhaps you've tried different tactics, perhaps you've tried different methods, and all that matters today is you've tried having that old issue that doesn't need to be there anymore. And as that old issue no longer works, as that old barrier, hurdle, wall, limitation, whatever it might have been, no longer works for you, time now to begin doing things very differently. So the number 1, imagine there you are, whether it's tonight, whether it's tomorrow, taking one simple step in a new direction. Become aware of yourself now, whether it's tonight, whether it's tomorrow, doing one thing differently than you did it before. And as you do that, your mind, your body, connecting with that natural sense of change. Past performance need not indicate future results. And as you take that step, as you take that movement in that brand new direction, perhaps at that time becoming aware of the other opportunities that are there. Becoming aware of opportunities that were there that perhaps you had not yet even noticed. Seeing things as they are, no longer out of proportion as they were before. developing a greater sense of confidence within yourself, a greater sense of independence as well, that ability to stick up for yourself, perhaps now even when it's to yourself, and letting life now begin to move forward in the directions that you want, and allowing yourself to learn along the way, to test, to challenge, to discover as well. So take this brief bit of silence and become aware of that very next action step that allows life now to begin to move in that brand new direction. How just one simple step, one simple action, one simple movement can begin to pay massive dividends moving forward. Allow yourself to become aware of what it's time to begin to do now. And of course, at night, as you sleep and dream, allowing the mind to begin to integrate these experiences, letting the mind and body just begin to marinate in all the possibilities. And in a few moments, those eyes will easily reopen, taking a step into that journey you create for yourself now. As one, letting that energy begin to rise on up, becoming more aware of your surroundings. Two, feeling that energy rising on up, and whenever you're ready to move forward in your life. Three, let those eyes open up, feeling refreshed, feeling alert, ready to take action, feeling good.
By the way, the action to take is to give Jason a round of applause for an awesome session. And the way you do that in a chat room, I don't know why, I learned this from Jeff McBride, is threes. I don't know, I suppose it's the closest thing we have to looking like the clap. So there you go.
Wonderful, Jason.
Thank you.
So there we have it. This is Sunday Live. As I always say, if you guys have a topic you want to discuss, if you have a person you would like us to have on as a guest, if you guys have questions you want us to answer, please let us know. Jason's on because people said they wanted to hear what Jason had to say, and so now you get to. We had great momentum with that before we took the summer break. I want to redevelop that momentum. This is the beginning of it. Please keep letting us know this time is for you and about you. Thank you very much. Richard, what do you got in closing?
In closing, I want to touch on hypno thoughts and answer a question or two that you didn't answer. I've posted a couple of places. Some people have had some difficulty logging on to hypnothoughts.com. And for security reasons, when the websites are transferred over in such a major way, no passwords are transferred over. And most people got an email saying reset it, but sometimes emails get lost or people don't open them or the servers don't deliver them. And so there is a reset button. I posted it in the Facebook group, and I posted it in the ICBCH group on Facebook. But if you have any trouble logging in, let me know or Scott know, and we'll send you a link to reset the password. But that is probably what the issue is. Anything you want to add to that from a technical perspective, Scott?
Yeah, I mentioned before the transfer that this is an insane transfer of data with over 1 million links that all need to match up when it's all done, and a couple 100,000 documents. And so I knew, and from one platform to another based on completely different programming languages. So I knew this was going to be a process. And so the core functionality of the site works wonderfully. In fact, it works better than the old site in terms of mobile, in terms of some things like that. In terms of security, it's better, some things like that. Give me a couple days to iron out some wrinkles. I've got a list. This morning there were 18 things on the list of things we needed to clean up. As of right now, there are 11. So we've gotten through 7. We're going to get through the other 11 and find some more. Please keep telling me what you're noticing. The difference between me running a test site and running this live is the difference between throwing a bullet and shooting one. So please keep telling me what you think. I know new change is always different for people depending on how comfortable they are with the tech. But give me a few days. Keep playing with it, make it familiar, and I really truly believe that you will see, like many people already see, that this site is noticeably better than the old platform. But keep letting me know, and we'll keep making adjustments along the way. And Richard, thank you for posting that link about the login thing.
Yeah, and you can just go straight to it. You don't need to wait for that email. You can just use that link and reset your password. That's what I had to do.
Yeah.
And that's everyone noticed last week. Scott and I have the same programmer. So last week we got a new subliminal science. This week we got a new hypno thoughts, and none of my passwords transferred over either. And that's just a security thing. You can't transfer passwords because we don't know what your passwords are.
Right. If I had a list of 18,000 hypnotist passwords, my goodness, I would be living on an island having robbed all of your bank accounts. But we don't have that option because the software is smart and they hide your passwords so that Richard and I and Jason cannot steal your stuff if we were so inclined. So rest assured.
All right, it's been great having everybody. Thank you, Jason Lynette.
Good being here.
WorkSmartHypnosis.com. Every Sunday we get together to talk about hypnosis, experience hypnosis, learn clinical, business, and personal applications of hypnosis. All of the archives, there's a link at the very top to look at all the other shows we've done over the last year, and probably even some archives from the old Sunday night or Monday night shows before that. I think I actually put some in there at one point. But anyway, great to have everybody. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, good being here. And again, I'd reference that survey, worksmarthypnosis.com/survey. And if you're interested in boot camp, between now and Friday, throw in the word Sunday in all caps. That'll take off a nice percentage.
There you go.
Thank
Thanks,
you for
everybody.
doing that.
Bye
Good
now.
night.